All right, well, shifting gears in a major way, Lewis and Clark have continued their expedition. They're on their way out. That was really great to see those guys again. And
that was a lot of fun.
It's a good reunion for me because it's been about 200 years since
200
I had a
years.
chance to see them.
1806, if you don't remember.
I know, just a little bit. I was a little bit younger then. But anyway, we have a special guest in the studio this morning.
That's right. You probably already heard her voice if you listened to our newscast this morning. We're speaking with Nicole Siefert. She's the attorney for Mike Dominic, who's filing a complaint, an HR complaint, against Sheriff T.J. McDermott here in the city of Missoula, which you might have heard something about in the last couple of days.
That certainly is right.
But anyway, I did a story with you, and instead of playing that story again, I guess let's just start the conversation with the question I asked you the other day.
Sounds good.
Because all this stuff came out. I think a lot of our listeners have had a chance to read it. If you haven't, we'll probably go into it later on in the show. But lots of pretty heavy accusations at the sheriff's office, and the sheriff in particular, frankly. And the sheriff came back when we did an interview with Mr. McDermott. Actually, Peter did the interview the other day and said that it was what was outrageous,
slanderous, and outrageous,
and slanderous. Right. And I'm sure that the word slander probably raises some alarm.
Loaded word.
Yeah. Well, legally, it has some meaning, right?
It does.
So tell us a little bit about what that word means and why you don't think it fits with the filing that you made.
Absolutely. So I even brought the statute with me. I'm such a lawyer. So slander is a false and unprivileged publication. And
now, if that's slander, what is libel then?
Spoken.
Okay, libel is spoken, slander is written.
Libel
Correct.
uses lips.
I always get it backwards.
That's why I remembered it for the bar exam. As
Yeah.
well.
Is that how you did it?
Yes.
See?
There you go. Okay, perfect. All right.
And what we wrote in the complaint is truthful. And we have witnesses that can testify about each thing that we put into the complaint. So these are truthful statements.
Okay.
So it wouldn't be slander.
Now,
go ahead.
If you don't mind me asking, this is something that was also part of the conversation I had with Sheriff McDermott. Deeply upset that that your law firm made the complaint available to the media before the investigation even had a chance to begin. And if he felt that was very unfair. And so if you could comment on that. As an attorney who is dealing with a very difficult subject for Captain Dominic, how can you, if you could just comment on that?
Absolutely. So in the legal world, typically the complaints are public record. Mm-hmm. When you file a case at district court, it's public.
Right.
In human rights, the Human Rights Bureau doesn't release the complaint. You can request it, but both parties have to consent. And in this case, we drafted a complaint, we sent it off, and the news media immediately started calling our office and wanted a copy. So I called my client and asked, which is his right, and he consented. He said, sure, you can release it to the media. So I know that the county has done that on similar occasions. It's done regularly and routinely, and I believe that the sheriff himself has done that recently. So the taxpayers in the community have a right to know the allegations against their public elected official.
When you say the sheriff himself has done that recently, Sheriff McDermott, we all know, had a human rights complaint against Mr. Ibsen back when he was sheriff, if I'm not mistaken, 2013.
Correct.
And do you know if that was released to the public?
He did not release that. The undersheriff released his complaint, but my understanding is that Sheriff McDermott did not release his.
So at least he's ethically consistent on this point.
He with his own personal information, he is with information that he decides in his discretion that he wants to release to the public. He does that as well, such as you've probably seen the information with Paige Pavolone. That was released to the public, and I'm not sure if that was specifically the sheriff or if that was the county.
But that's not a human rights complaint. That was a district court.
Correct, and
Yeah.
it will likely go to human rights.
Okay.
That's the procedure. Is that if you have a discrimination charge, it goes through human rights.
Right.
So that we'll probably be seeing that in human rights as well.
Okay. All right.
Interesting. So as you've dug into this, just as a citizen of Missoula, not as an attorney, what are your concerns about the way that the sheriff's department operates?
When Captain Dominic first sat down in my office, what I found most interesting is that he is the highest paid employee in the sheriff's office, maybe with the exception of the sheriff. And
as far as being an hourly employee.
Exactly, as far as being an hourly employee. And taxpayers pay his salary. And currently, he spends a huge portion of his time cleaning the floors, scrubbing the toilets, making sure that the evidence facility is tidy.
Now, when again, because Sheriff McDermott is not here.
Correct.
Okay,
Yes.
But he could be 721-1290.
Yeah, seriously.
Also, that goes for everybody in Missoula. If you want to call and talk to us, 721-1290.
I see the sheriff quite often. His
Okay.
office is right across from mine. So.
Okay, well, there you go. All right, so now, where was I? Okay.
You were going to go, since he's not here.
Since he's
Yes.
not here, I remember him saying, thanks, John.
I'm so sorry.
He says this is an important job.
Yeah. Oh, yes. Thank you. Yeah. He had mentioned that that first of all, Captain Dominic was not demoted. That he still retained the rank and pay of captain. That the job of managing the evidence warehouse is a very important job because it does contain guns and cash and drugs and all sorts of things that need to be secure so that they can make a good case when they are bringing criminals to court. So somebody has to be in charge of that. So why not Captain Dominic?
It is an important job. It's a job that was typically run by a civilian. It doesn't need to be a sworn officer to run the secure evidence facility. It's an important job because you make sure that the evidence stays secure.
Right.
Very important job. Answering the phones is a very important job at my law firm. If my office manager does not pick up the phone and answer the phone, I will not get any work.
Right.
It's a very important job. If one day my law partner, Quentin Rhodes, came into the office and said, Nicole, I know you went to law school for 7 years. You have all this training. You've been in practice for 6 years. You're my partner. I'm not going to take away your pay, but from now on you're going to answer the phones, which is a very important job. It would still be a demotion to me because I have training and expertise to do a certain thing, and now that's being taken away from me.
Okay, we're going to take a little break. We're up against a break. We have all three lines open. Seriously, anyone from the sheriff's office, from the management there, if the lines are open, this is an open invitation for you to call 721-1290 if you feel it appropriate. We would love to have you.
Yeah.
The lines are open.
When we get back from the break, I'd like you to lay out the case, if you would, as to the accusations that there was political targeting and an enemies list. These are your quotes, I assume, or maybe Mr. Dominic's quotes from the press release or the human rights complaint. So we'll get into that after the break.
Stay with us. This is Talk Back, and it's Thursday. We'd love to have your calls, 721-1290, 1-800-568-5309, or you can make your comments on our Facebook page. A very, very controversial topic. We're talking about the complaint, the human rights complaint that has been filed by Captain Mike Dominic, former captain of detectives, now captain of the secure warehouse, the evidence storage warehouse. 20 pages was the length of this complaint, which is that about normal, or is that fairly large?
Well, I don't know if you know Quentin Rhodes or myself, but we're both chatty people, so maybe that's normal for us.
This is Nicole Siefert, by the way. So go ahead.
No, Nicole. Let's go into some of the meat of the argument here,
Sure.
because everybody's worked a job with a boss that they might not have agreed with, or had an issue at work. Maybe they were put had a different job title, or shuffled around to some extra responsibility. Trust me, Peter and I have had a lot of extra responsibilities put on our shoulders over the past 3 or 4 years. And sometimes you're just like, well, if Peter were to just start whining all the time about these extra responsibilities, I'd be laughing at him. We just take it, we grin and bear it, whatever.
Either that or just quit.
Yeah. If you don't like it, get out. So a lot of people are probably reading what's going on with Mike Dominic. I know because I've read the Facebook post, and they're saying, why are all these complaints? Why doesn't he just take it on the chin and keep going? And a lot of the reason behind that in the argument that you lay out is because of the political motivation behind these demotions and shufflings in the power structure at the sheriff's office. So I would like you to make that case for us. How do you know it's politically motivated?
Captain Dominic was very vocal in his opposition of Sheriff McDermott. He was very vocal for Josh Clark. And what we saw is after Josh Clark lost the election, very quickly thereafter, Sheriff McDermott, before he even took office, started taking some action around the office, letting people know that his supporters would be promoted and his those in opposition would be demoted. And he didn't say those words. He didn't use those words. But very quickly there were rumors that started passing around that Dominic is going to be sent to the warehouse where he's out of the way. And we have some credible witnesses that have overheard those sort of things.
That rumor, quote unquote, it's in quotes in your document.
Yes, it is.
So it's more than a rumor, right?
It is more than a rumor. Which again goes to the whole,
if the attribution is correct, right?
Yes, and one of the people who came forward and said, "Gosh, Captain Dominic, I'm really sorry. It seems like the sheriff's out to punish you for being vocal against him." Was Chaplain Chuck Lee, and he's also a longtime member of the sheriff's office and a chaplain, and I don't
a kinder, gentler man you'll never meet.
Yes, and so the people who heard these, I don't want to call them rumors, but the people that heard these things that Captain Dominic was going to be taken care of in a way that was not happy, not where he wanted to be. Mm-hmm. These people are good people at the sheriff's office. So as soon as the election was over, these things started happening, and then once Sheriff McDermott took over, it was actually before he was even sworn in, his first task was to send Mike Dominic out to the warehouse. It created a new position for him where he no longer supervises anyone, and in an area where his skill set is not utilized.
So tell us why this is illegal or wrong. Is there a code, a law that says you can't put someone in a warehouse?
You can't retaliate against people.
Okay.
You can't in your job. You can't retaliate against people, and one of the reasons you can't retaliate against them is for their political beliefs. And because McDermott has different political beliefs than Captain Dominic, they were at opposite ends of the spectrum as far as the sheriff's race went. Now McDermott can't retaliate against Captain Dominic.
Now, I had a conversation with Patty Baumgart with the
Yes.
county yesterday, and this comment is in our full story that's on our webpage. However, I wasn't able to use it on the radio, and I said when someone files a human rights violations charge against an employer, no matter who it is, whether it's a county commissioner or mayor or whatever it might be. They are the person who is complained against specifically cannot come back and fire you for making that complaint, right?
That's correct.
Because that would be retaliation.
Correct.
So even though I'm sure Captain Dominic is not,
I'm sure it's no fun at work today.
Yeah. I was just going to say, what is the 8 o'clock meeting like for, I wouldn't want to be there. But anyway, but still no official action can be taken against him. Now, let's just say it's a year from now and it's all over. Okay, one way or the other, it's been settled. Could the sheriff go back and say, you know what, Mike, we just got to let you go?
Not without cause.
Okay. All right.
Okay, let me go into some of the questions we've got on Facebook.
Tell you what,
Absolutely.
Can we take a quick break?
Peter, since you have that board and that powerful finger of yours, I think you could do whatever the heck you want.
I'm trying to be Mr. Politeness Man here. So we're going to come right back. 721-1290 is our number. If you would like to comment, this is a talk show. We have 3 phone lines. We'd love to hear from you. If you have this is Nicole Siefert. She's the attorney representing Captain Mike Dominic. If you'd like to make a comment, if the sheriff or the undersheriff or anybody else from the Sheriff's Department would like to call and be a part of this discussion, we would love to have you. 721-1290 is our number. We're coming right back. We're back on Talkback. 721-1290 is our number. Nicole Siefert joining us here in studio. She is the attorney representing Captain Mike Dominic with the Missoula Sheriff's Department. He's filed a retaliation complaint against Sheriff T.J. McDermott and the county because of what he perceives as a demotion from captain of detectives to working out at the evidence warehouse. So let's get to the phones and say good morning to Diane. Diane, thanks for holding. You're on Talkback. Go ahead.
Yes, thank you for taking my call. I just, as this conversation's been taking place, just kind of joggled my memory. Didn't Josh Clark, prior to losing the race, maybe even prior to that, didn't he say something along the lines of there would be retaliations against him if he lost, or maybe after he lost he felt he was retaliated against?
I will tell you.
I'm sorry. Go ahead, John.
One thing that struck out to me, we spoke with all of these people pretty much. I mean, on all sides of the aisle before the election. And I remember specifically T.J. McDermott telling me that he didn't think Josh Clark would be at the sheriff's department after the election. And I said, why? Is he going to get fired or something? And he said, no, I just don't think he will want to be around or something. I mean, I don't want to put words in his mouth. You can go back and listen to the tape. It's
Can
recorded.
I list you as a witness in our other human rights complaint?
I guess so. I mean, it's all public. I mean, you could play the tape.
Yeah, I guess for whatever reason I had it in my own memory that Josh Clark himself said something about it all. But anyway, wasn't so much I guess it's just sort of a question to see if anybody out there remembered that too, or whether it's just I'm misremembering stuff.
Sure.
Anyway, but that was all I had.
Thanks, Diane. Appreciate your call. Now, I think everybody who has been in Missoula for the last year and a half, okay, knows what a bitter, divisive election. I've been around for a long time, as John knows. I've been around for a long time, and I cannot remember a more rancorous election involving law enforcement officers, and which is a shame because it's such a vitally important job.
It's a very important job.
The citizens of Missoula County literally put the lives in the hands of these men and women who put their lives at stake. Every day they go out, they could get shot at, they could get hit by a car, they could be, targeted. All sorts of horrible things can happen. And I just think all this is such a needless distraction from such an important job. Just as a citizen, it outrages me that all this is going on from both sides. So anyway.
It outraged me as well when I had two clients walk into my office, Josh Clark and Captain Mike Dominic, and I had seen the retaliation that occurred because I am a tax-paying citizen, and I want to know that the sheriff's office is doing what they need to be doing, that they need to be protecting and serving.
Catching bad guys and serving the public. Right.
And so it outraged me as a tax-paying citizen that this sort of retaliation is taking place, and it just seems so childish to me.
Let's get back to the phone. And Susie, go ahead. You're on Talkback.
Good morning. How are you?
Fine, ma'am. Good to talk to you again, Susie.
Well, the reason I'm calling is this really rings true to me on something. When I first took office, if you may recall, there was
This is Susie Foss, by the way, former Ravalli County Commissioner. Go ahead.
There was a wrongful or accusation of being demoted and treated improperly within the county attorney's office. Bill Fulbright had taken over the office after that win. The difference here is that was not political on the county side. It was political by the person who made the accusation very clearly, and there was no credible witness to indicate anything else. So the county, of course, settled just to get rid of it. But the problem is, in this case, when you have someone like Chuck Lee, one of the most honorable men I've ever met, got to know over a year when he was working to replace, be a temporary pastor in our church, that says something that we really need to look at, because Chuck Lee is so impeccable. So really makes me look at this case differently. At first I'm going, oh gosh, this is just like what we had. I believe every supervisor, owner, elected official, whomever is over employees, has the right to make necessary changes to adapt to the environment of the workplace as it changes. That's what happened in Ravalli County. It wasn't a demotion. It was actually putting someone who was better suited and had great success from an area where he was doing poorly. In this case, if Chuck says that this happened or he heard this and now John has heard something, I think we need to really look at it. So thanks for the opportunity to just say this is a problem that happens, but we have to remember supervisors and owners of businesses or elected officials over other people, whatever, have the right to reorganize if it's truly to improve the business at hand, but not retaliation. But you need credible witnesses. And if you've got it, then you've got a pretty strong case.
All right. Thank you, Susie. Appreciate your call. Go ahead, Nicole.
I couldn't agree with Susie more. The sheriff does have discretion to organize his office.
He's the man.
We elected him.
We elected him. Yeah, right.
But there are some limits to his power. First, he has to make sure he has the money to do so. And my understanding is that some captains' positions have been left unfilled because there's not the money.
One of them is the captain of detectives.
Captain of detectives, right? Which seems like a very important position to me. There's 10 detectives.
Well, if you remember, Sheriff McDermott was a detective sergeant when he was running for office. So a man very, very aware of what's going on and what happens and what's required within the detectives division.
Right. So that when there's he has to work within the constraints of the budget, and also he needs to make sure that he's trying to improve the office, trying to make sure the office is run smoothly. And it doesn't seem to me that that's been done, and it doesn't seem to Captain Dominic that that's what's been done.
Go ahead, John.
Prominently featured in the HR complaint is what I call the enemies list paragraph, in which you throw the family tree into this particular debate. And a lot of people besides Josh Clark and Mike Dominic's names are put into the list. Maybe you want to read off some of them, but we have a question from Claire regarding another name, and she wants to know if it's someone that might get involved. She says, is it true that Matt Lowy also resigned last Friday? Seems that his name also kept coming up connected to several of the players in this fiasco.
You know, I really can't comment on that just because I truly don't know why Mr. Lowy possibly gave his resignation.
Well, there was an article in the Missoulian this morning.
And that is as much as my information.
Right.
That's the information I have.
Article, well-reported article in the Missoulian that's one of the folks in Justice Court has resigned.
Amy Blixt, if I'm not mistaken.
Allegedly over this whole thing involved with Paige Pavlov. So anyway, on and on we go. I feel like I need some soap opera music in the background.
I think I need one of those Dr. Russia Mercury pills to clean me out.
We're going to come right back. We have all three lines open, 721-1290. This is your Sheriff's Department. And I guess maybe one question might be, what's a good way to solve this? What is a good way to, when this is all done and it's all in the rearview mirror and we're done, we're back friends and all that kind of stuff, what's a good way to keep this kind of stuff from happening again? I believe I have a solution.
Ooh, is it the same one we talked about before the show?
Yes, it is. And we're going to come right back in just a moment. Yeah. 721-1290. That's the number. All three lines are empty.
721-1290 is the number. Well, we got a lot of Facebook filled up.
Okay, let's go. Go with Facebook.
Mitchell says, I downloaded and read Paige Pavlone's court filing. Same song, different verse. Lots of management errors. Paige was targeted. I want to know, you have involved yourself deeply with Mr. McDermott and Josh Clark. Those are the individuals that you represent.
Yeah.
Sorry? I'm sorry. I said
Dominic.
McDermott, but
That's
I meant
okay.
to say Mike Dominic.
Yeah.
That's okay.
It's hard. McDermott, Mike Dominic. McDermott, Mike Dominic.
Okay.
With Mr. Dominic and Josh Clark. And there are all these other people that are mentioned in the... Are we going to... Is the Human Rights Bureau going to hear testimony from any of these people?
Yes, they will. I believe that Paige Pavlone would likely be a witness, and I've been in contact with her attorney, and I'm fairly certain that at least Josh Clark, if not Captain Dominic as well, would be witnesses for her case as well.
So are they all connected?
They're connected because they all supported Josh Clark. They all supported Josh Clark when he ran against T.J. McDermott as sheriff, and so they're connected because they have political beliefs that went against the current sheriff, and they were retaliated against. So they're connected in that light.
Interesting. So when it comes down to some of the things that were in the complaint, one of the big complaints that we heard was that basically, if you get to the bottom of it, I think page 16 or 17, there's this seedy stuff that gets thrown in there, right? There's a guy driving around in a sheriff's car. I guess it's a guy having sex in front of Missoula businesses. There's an individual that pulls over a lady or knows that a lady's being pulled over and wants to meet her because he saw her picture on Facebook. So he drives over there and has the other sheriff's deputies hold that person there, obviously abusing human rights, I think. I mean, using the law to your personal benefit instead of to the public's benefit, which is pretty shocking behavior. And I wanted to know, why'd you throw that in there? It doesn't seem connected to Mike Dominic.
It is connected to Mike Dominic because he
KGVO.
was the head of internal affairs. He was the undersheriff, and then he was the captain of detectives, and he knew this information about a certain deputy, and they were unsigned complaints. But his job as an administrative professional is to pass along to the new administrative professional, Undersheriff Johnson, these concerns. Hey, we've had some unsigned complaints about a deputy, and if any of these ever, if someone comes forward and eventually signs a complaint, we're going to have a real problem here, so just keep your eye on it. And instead of being met with, thanks for letting me know this, Captain Dominic was further punished for relaying important information within the department.
No, sorry, I don't understand what unsigned means. Does unsigned mean this is a rumor that I'm spreading? I mean,
no,
okay.
No. Unsigned means, Captain Dominic picks up the phone and a business person is complaining, and they say, "Would you like to sign a formal complaint?" No, I just thought that you should know.
Okay.
But
is that what it was? The business called about this? Wow.
That is what happened.
What's the name of the business?
Would you like to know?
Yeah, I would. That's why I'm asking.
The business owner obviously didn't want to sign a complaint, and because they wouldn't sign a complaint.
Their privacy has to be respected.
Absolutely.
All right. Well, you business owners, if you're listening, I'll let you give a free spiel.
Wow. All right. Let's get back to the phones. We're getting in trouble here. Tom, you're on Talkback. Go ahead.
Oh, hi. Just a quick question. There's been more than one mention about different...
Hey, Tom, it sounds like you've been attacked by robots. Can you get close on the receiver there?
I'm vacuuming the family center here. No, I'm not. There's been a mention more than once about political differences. What exactly are the differences? Is it like conservative versus progressive? Is it simple as that? That's my only question.
Well, yeah, that's interesting. What are the political differences? They were all Democrats.
In the first round of election, they were all Democrats, and then Josh Clark ran. He was a write-in candidate.
It's still saying he's a Democrat.
Okay, if I may, we're up against a break, but
yes.
let me just set up the scenario here.
Sure.
For those of you who may have forgotten, all right, allow me to introduce. No, if you remember, during the primary, everybody was a Democrat, okay? Even if they didn't want to be a Democrat, they filed as a Democrat because, as everybody knows, you can't win an election in Missoula if you're not a Democrat. So the County Democratic Committee, who, in their rules, during primaries, it specifically prohibits them from choosing, from endorsing a Democrat because, we're all in the same team, let the best person win. Well, The County Democratic Committee, in case you don't remember, held a meeting and suspended that rule so that they could endorse the, quote, real Democrat, who was T.J. McDermott, and the fake Democrat, who was Josh Clark, who they said he was a Republican, although he claimed to be a Democrat his whole life, was not the, quote, real Democrat. And it just made my head explode. So anyway, that's kind of where that all started, right? So we're going to come right back, and we'd love to have your calls, 721-1290. Hey, we're back on Talkback, 721-1290 is our number. Nicole Siefert joining us this morning, the attorney representing Captain Mike Dominic, the Missoula County Sheriff's Office, and...
so right before
a retaliation complaint.
We had a question about politics.
Political beliefs,
yes. You've been talking a lot about politics.
Yes.
And how there's different political beliefs going on in the office. Now, for the outsiders here, we see Democrat, Democrat, Democrat. That was the original three. One Democrat won. Another got, Josh Clark decided to run a write-in campaign. What are the actual political differences here?
Well, it's not necessarily political differences as political activities and political beliefs that are protected. So you don't have to be a Democrat running against a Republican and then be retaliated against in order to file a complaint. Okay. If you take a position against another candidate and then are later retaliated against, that's still retaliation based off political beliefs.
Interesting.
So because Dominic was very vocal against TJ McDermott when he was running. He was retaliated against because of his political beliefs and activities, such as writing a Missoulian article or standing up for Josh
Well,
Clark.
he did write an editorial.
He did.
Yes, so that was quite
And he-
critical of McDermott at the time.
It was, and he talked to the HR department at the county before he did so. He went and made sure that everything he was going to do was okay before he did so, and then afterwards, after he did it, he went back and said, "Okay, now I've heard these rumors that, or maybe not rumors, as we're saying, that I might be retaliated against. Will you watch out for this?" And we know what happened.
Okay. Let's get Matt on the line. Matt, first of all, thank you for holding, sir. Please go ahead.
Yeah, I just have a comment. Seems to me that we ought to take politics out of this, I don't know what you call it. I guess you call it law enforcement or peace officers, or this service that is provided to us citizens at our cost. We should be hiring a private firm to do this work for us and just get rid of all this politics.
You know, I'm really glad you brought that up. Now, I didn't ask you to call in, did I, Matt?
No.
Okay.
But somebody had an editorial in the paper kind of making that suggestion,
Right.
and that's probably where I kind of popped in my head.
Well,
today.
the reason first of all, thanks for your call. I had a long conversation with a county official yesterday. It was Gene Curtis, county commissioner, and we were just kicking stuff around, and I said, would it be possible someday to make and I talked about this a lot during the primary and during the election, if you remember. I mean, it's open, it's right there on all those tapes. Anyway, let's make this a nonpartisan race. Let's make this, we have candidate A, candidate B, candidate C, and no D's, no R's, no I's, no independents, no Green Party, no nothing. We have this person with their qualifications, this and this person. You get to make the best choice without the benefit of all the political committees and all the fundraising and all that nonsense that goes with it. And from what I understand, there are two ways to do that. One is through the local government study commission, which the citizens of Missoula in the last round said they didn't want to do. The other, I believe, is through an initiative.
Yeah, Citizens Initiative.
Right.
And actually, I am going to call the Secretary of State's office today and try to get a Citizens Initiative going to make it so that these are nonpartisan races, the Missoula County Attorney and the Sheriff's Department. And I know out there, if you're a Democrat, which most Missoulians frankly are, then you wouldn't notice that this was an issue. But if you were a Republican in Missoula, you didn't even get a vote, even in the primary, for anybody.
Which means you really didn't get to vote for the county attorney or the sheriff.
Right, unless you chose, like I did, to switch ballots and vote on the Democratic primary. So it's a pretty big deal. You're cutting off we're not Republicans are not that much of an endangered species. I mean, we make up what 30% at least. So there's a sizable portion of Missoula.
1 out of 12 on the city council. Anyway,
but it's a sizable portion of Missoula that had no say in a very important situation that's going on in your city. And if you want vigorous debate and you want to have this all cleared up, I think it would be better if we have these people face each other as individuals instead of true Democrat or fake Democrat. I mean, that problem came out in this particular election. In fact, we have a couple of Facebook questions I wanted to get to.
Go ahead.
It has to do questions. Let's see. Mary had the question. Here she goes. This is a question from Mary. She says, "It seems to me that the mayor and TJ McDermott were too cozy with the mayor supporting McDermott's campaign. Is this something that's going to come up at all? Is it part of a..."
That's not included anywhere in our HR complaint, and I don't know that it will be. I've heard those rumblings as well, though.
However, the mayor, as a private citizen, has a right to support
He sure does.
whomever he wants in that office.
And I'm sure he's like everyone. He wants to work with people that he's familiar with and friends with. And so, maybe possibly that was his motivation. I'm not sure.
And it could have been a little bit of party politics as well. Fellow Democrat, I'm the chief Democrat for the city. You'd be the chief Democrat for the county, aside from the county commissioners. Anyway, so we have a 1-minute break. So Catherine and Emmett, we're going to get you guys on. And I'm sure we have lots more Facebook comments, and we haven't come anywhere near solving all this, but hopefully we're bringing a lot more light than heat into the conversation so that people know better what's at stake with all this. Okay, when we come back, I want to ask you that. What's at stake with all this? We'll be right back. Okay, here we are. 721-1290 is our number. We're rapidly running out of time. And so if you wouldn't mind, Nicole, what is at stake here? Obviously, Human Rights Bureau, we know that they're capable of saying this is you can go to court, you can sue, and then many times the county, which they did with Sheriff McDermott and Mr. Johnson, they settled for a certain amount, and then life went on after that. So what's at stake here for Captain Dominic?
Well, one thing that Captain Dominic wants is to enjoin T.J. McDermott and the county from discriminating and retaliating against others like him who might disagree with McDermott. You can disagree with your boss, and if he's a public elected official and you've voiced concerns against him, you can do that without fear of being retaliated against. And he wants to make sure that.
But hold on, is that really realistic, though? I mean, come on. If you come out against your boss in an open way, can't you expect some, short sheet in your bed, or you know what I mean? Just I realize that sounds silly, but there's some retaliation should be expected.
He could expect that maybe Sheriff McDermott isn't his best friend at work, but he should expect that his boss puts in a position where he's qualified, where he has been qualified. He's an exemplary officer, and this is something that's somewhat new in the sheriff's office. Back when Brad Giffen ran against Ibsen in 2010, when Brad Giffen lost, Ibsen promoted Brad Giffen to patrol and Giffen's likely undersheriff, Marcelli, to captain of detectives. So he said, you guys are the most qualified people for the jobs. I'm going to promote you, even though I ran against you, because I know you're qualified for the job. And here McDermott said, you're qualified for the job. He said, you're qualified, but I'm going to go ahead and just put you out to the warehouse.
Different ways of mending fences.
Yes.
Go ahead.
Matt called back. He didn't get to finish his point. He said that we should privatize our sheriff's department. Which may be an idea. One thing I will say is
hire the Pinkertons.
You do not have to be a county sheriff's deputy to be sheriff of the department. You could be a private citizen.
Sure.
So Peter Christian for sheriff.
I think not. Let's get Catherine
Need
on the
a campaign
line.
manager?
Yeah. No, that's okay. Catherine, good morning. You're on Talkback. Hi.
Just a quick question. Is there any sort of, are you guys talking, you and the lawyers, for instance, Paige Pavlon and I don't know if Josh Clark has an attorney, but are you talking at all about some sort of coordinated action between the disaffected employees?
Almost like a class action situation?
Yeah, a class action situation. Is there some sort of coordinated effort to kind of clean out the sheriff's department? Because it sounds like, it needs a good mopping out.
There's no sort of class action that's been discussed, but my law firm also represents Josh Clark, and we have been in contact with Paige Pavlin's attorney, Josh Van Wettering. Just because some of the facts are so similar, we've been discussing those facts amongst ourselves, but it's more coordinated effort because it's for the same, they're being retaliated against for the same reason. Mm-hmm. But each person has, they've been retaliated against in different ways. So that's why there's individual cases.
One little thing, I don't know if you noticed the other day there was an article in the Missoulian which really kind of raised my eyebrows because it was a discussion about Paige Pavlon's, the allegations against her, and it wasn't alleged this and alleged that, but it was released to the public media. So when the sheriff said something about how he was shocked and appalled about the release of information on this particular action that you're discussing, my eyebrows kind of went up, and I thought, talking about out of two sides of their mouths, really, seems like.
Well, and
thanks, Catherine.
Paige, I believe, was fired while she was out visiting with her dad's funeral.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's a tough time. It was a tough time.
Let's get Emmett on the line. Emmett, good morning. You're on Talkback. Hi.
Well, thanks for taking my call. I have a question. Now, I did in that election you were talking about, where only Democrats, were on, for the candidate for sheriff. I know that they were all Democrats, but I went ahead and voted on the Republican ballot anyway. But I just wrote one of them in, with the one that lost, just because I really liked what he. Does that mean my vote wasn't counted in the final tally because I didn't vote on the Democrat?
Yes, it did not count.
I can't believe that. Well,
I did a story on it so that you would know, but you weren't listening. Yes, your vote did not count.
That's horrible. That is a bad slap in the face of anyone who's independent Republican, or I'm an independent, but almost as if you had to vote Democrat to vote for one of the sheriffs. There's almost, it's not a crime to be a Republican, and I agree with Peter, that it just makes my head explode that there's this infighting over who's the Republican or who's not the Republican, when it should be about getting the job done, because it seems so hard to be a conservative here in Missoula. I think that's almost a crime that you would have your vote lost if you voted on the Republican ticket. There's something about election law I'm not sure about. I'm not a lawyer.
Let's put it this way: I haven't been pulled over yet because I have an R behind my name.
Exactly, and you shouldn't,
might come to
you
that.
shouldn't have to worry about it at all in Missoula or any place else. So that's my comment. And thank you.
Thanks for the call. Appreciate it. All right. Yeah. Wow. Okay. So we have like a minute and a half to wrap up. So
what should the public think about when this goes forward? We got another month, right? And then we'll hear a response from the sheriff's department, but we might not see it.
You might not see it. It's up to the county and the sheriff to release that. If they consent, Human Rights can release it, and if they don't consent, they can release it on their own. That's up to them.
And then after that, you get a response.
After that, I get to respond, and then the investigation starts, and all the people who we know in the county are unhappy, or people who used to work at the county, or anyone who knows any of the facts that we've listed in the complaint will be interviewed, and the investigator will make a finding, and then we get to go from there.
Wow. Well, thank you for coming in.
Thank you for having me. This is my first time on the radio, and
when
it's very pleasant.
When do you do?
I am due in 2 weeks,
Wow.
June 18th. I'm very pregnant.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
What a joyful event.
Thank
Okay.
you.
Anyway, we appreciate you being with us. Thank you.
Speaking of babies being due, I was born 34 years ago tomorrow.
Yeah.
So I won't be
birthday.
I won't be at work tomorrow. So have fun with Peter.
He thought he was getting the day off. No. And you guys have a great day. Enjoy this beautiful day, and try to not think about bad stuff. You just enjoy this day, and we'll talk to you tomorrow.